Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Today, over 500,000 test takers across South Korea are taking the college entrance exam, known as Suneung. The country came to a temporary standstill this morning, with the stock market opening an hour later and workers adjusting commute times to keep roads clear for test takers. The United States is nearing an end to its longest ever government shutdown, as House lawmakers return to Washington for a vote on a funding bill to reopen the government. This comes after senators on Monday broke the deadlock with a 60-40 vote. New satellite imagery suggests North Korea is preparing for a military parade at a training base in Pyongyang. Experts say the parade is likely being prepared ahead of the 9th Party Congress early next year. It's Suneung Day here in South Korea, where high school seniors and graduates take the country's annual college entrance exam. The test is well underway now and will last until nearly 6 p.m. today. For more, we have our reporter An Sung-jin live via one of the test sites. So, Sung-jin, what was it like there this morning?
Well, good morning, Indy. Between our arrival of 7 a.m. till when the test began around 8 a.m., we've seen students stream in here being cheered on by others who are holding signs like good luck or do your best. Now, luckily, the weather today isn't as cold because Suneung is normally when the temperature drops. Now, for a lot of students here in South Korea, having a good score in Suneung means that they strive for a good luck, or also having a good score in Suneung is something that they strive for, as it could determine their next step. Now, this year, there are more than 550,000 test takers are taking the test at nearly 1,300 test-taking centers across the nation.
This is my second time taking the test, so I have to do a good job. I want to play basketball and soccer and play video games when I'm done.
There are a lot of students taking the exam today. I hope they don't get too nervous. I came here to support my child.
Now, as you heard, the number of test takers for this year is the highest in 7 years. The number of those retaking the exam has slightly decreased, though, partly due to the reversal of plans to expand the medical school quota. The Suneung normally lasts for 8 hours, but depending on the number of elective subjects, some students can end up taking the exam for more than 9 hours since they have entered the testing site by 8:10 a.m. Starting off with Korean language, the exam continues with math, English, and elective subjects.
Right, and Sung-jin, as you mentioned, the Suneung is such an important test for Korean students. What kind of measures are in place now?
Right, Inzi, as you rightly mentioned, there are several measures that have put in place for a stable running of Suneung. Now, on the day of the test, most government offices and some companies have pushed back their starting time till 10 a.m. Local police officers have also been maintaining order around the testing site and transporting test takers in need. More than 10,000 police officers, including traffic police, and around 2,200 patrol cars have been deployed around the testing sites nationwide to ensure a smooth and stable testing environment. Particular caution will be taken during the English listening section, which will be held from a little past 1 p.m. till 1:30. Authorities have requested adjustments to flight schedules so that aircraft do not take off or land during this period. Construction and military training exercises that could generate loud noise will also be suspended. Now, that's all I have for now, Indy, but I will be back in our later newscast.
All right, that was our An Sung-jin live at a testing site here in South Korea. Meanwhile, the U.S. federal government is poised to end its record-breaking shutdown. The House of Representatives has cast a procedural vote on the Senate-approved funding bill that will reopen agencies after the longest-ever shutdown, 43 days. For more, we have our correspondent Oh Suneung on the line for us. Suneung, what's the latest?
Hi, Indy. So over an hour ago, the House of Representatives on Wednesday local time endorsed a compromise bill to fund federal services with a very narrow vote of 213 to 209. Now, this was just a procedural vote, with lawmakers now debating the funding package before they go to a final vote. The legislation will keep government running through January 30th, 2026, to restore the full-year funding for Veterans Affairs and military construction, as well as safeguard the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or food stamps, through September next year. Now, if the final vote passes, it's going to go immediately to President Donald Trump to be signed into law. The White House earlier on Wednesday declared that the president looks forward to signing the measure once delivered, and this will effectively end 6 weeks of federal government shutdown, which is, as you said, the longest in U.S. history.
Right, and so what happens once President Trump seals the deal?
Well, once President Trump signs the bill, then federal agencies can reopen within hours, but seeing as it's nighttime there, perhaps in the morning over in the U.S. Furloughed federal employees will receive their full back pay, and officers across the country, from the IRS to national parks, will be able to restart their operations. Air traffic control staffing, transportation safety, they should also return to full capacity, easing the delays we've seen in recent weeks. But of course, this still is a short-term fix and not a resolution, as partisan divisions very much remain, with most Democrats remaining very opposed to the bill. The biggest point of contention here has been the Republicans' exclusion of healthcare subsidies, the so-called Obamacare measures, which Democrats insist must be extended by the end of the year. This standoff has caused the shutdown to drag into its 6th week, making it the longest in American history. Now, in the Senate this Monday, 7 Democrats crossed party lines, along with 1 independent senator, to advance the short-term funding bill, passing it with a 60 to 40 vote. Now, with what's expected to be a very slim passing of the bill tonight, it will buy time until January 30th, when Congress is going to face another funding deadline. So observers say that if negotiations stall again, then the risk of another shutdown early next year remains quite real. Back to you, Indy.
All right, Suneung, do keep us updated. Meanwhile, over in North Korea, latest satellite imagery shows the regime appears to be preparing for another major military parade, possibly to mark the upcoming 9th Party Congress next year. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
New satellite imagery suggests North Korea is preparing for another large military parade ahead of the upcoming 9th Party Congress. NK Pro analysts say hundreds of troop transport trucks have appeared at the Meeting Parade training base in southeast Pyongyang. The base features a full-scale replica of Kim Il-sung Square, where troops rehearse for major national events. Imagery from analytics firm Planet Labs show the trucks beginning to arrive between November 4th and 5th, then steadily increasing until the latest image on November 11th revealed several hundred vehicles. In recent years, trucks have only gathered at Meeting in the weeks or months leading up to a parade. This year, vehicles began arriving in June to support more than 3 months of rehearsals for the October 10th parade. But their reappearance just a couple of weeks later strongly suggests preparations for a new event. The timing points to the 9th Party Congress. Pyongyang is expected to use the gathering to review its weapons development goals from the last 5 years and to unveil a new set of arms production plans. A military parade will give the country another chance to showcase new systems, especially after revealing only a limited lineup of nuclear missiles and delivery platforms at last month's event. North Korea held its 8th Party Congress in January 2021. That Congress lasted from January 5th to January 12th, and a military parade followed on January 14th. The Workers' Party has already said it plans to hold an end-of-year plenum in mid-December, raising the possibility that it could repeat the previous schedule and convene the Congress in January. For now, state media continues to mention the 9th Party Congress, but has not announced a firm start date. Satellite imagery, however, strongly indicates that preparations for a major parade are already underway. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, South Korea's Foreign Minister Cho Hyun has met briefly with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the sidelines of the G7 Foreign Ministers meeting in Canada. According to Seoul's Foreign Ministry, Cho attended the expanded session on maritime and energy security on Wednesday local time. There, he was seen exchanging words with Rubio, with speculation that the two could discuss the pending bilateral fact sheet on joint trade and defense measures. The fact sheet has been delayed for over 2 weeks amid reported differences within the U.S. government. Cho also met with his Canadian counterpart Anita Anand and expressed Korea's hope of contributing to Canada's upcoming submarine project and broader defense cooperation. He held separate talks with foreign ministers from Brazil, Mexico, Germany, and the European Union. So Foreign Minister Cho Hyun is in Canada for the G7 foreign ministers meeting and met with his American counterpart, Marco Rubio. For more on this, we're joined today by Matthew David Jenkins, Associate Professor at the Department of Political Science at Gyeongsang National University. Professor Jenkins, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So eyes are now on whether the foreign ministers can find a breakthrough on the joint fact sheet between Seoul and Washington. And this is taking longer than expected to finalize. How do you think this issue will play out?
Yeah, so I think the broader context here is the transfer of operational control of the U.S. forces in South Korea. And so that is sort of lurking in the background as a bigger sort of question. But I think really there's more agreement on security issues. I think the bigger problem here is going to be trade, right? As we left APEC last, the United States took away a very different perception of what happened. The U.S. Announced that it was, that Korea's economy was essentially completely open, 100% open, and that is not what the Korean perception was. And so I think that is a pretty big gap that they're going to have to narrow. So they're going to have to find some agreement on that. There are also things related to tariffs. Korea would like to, address the tariff issue with the United States, and in terms of reducing those tariffs, the United States on its part wants to continue to ramp up pressure on China to increase export controls in order to target China. And so I think those are the more fundamental issues that are going to drag out this agreement. I wouldn't really expect a giant breakthrough in this short time. It's only a few days that they have to talk about this, and amongst a variety of other issues. So I would expect them to come out with some sort of just an announcement of continued progress and shared cooperation or something like this.
I see, and they still haven't found common ground on security issues as well, especially where to build a nuclear-powered submarine. And Korean officials are now questioning, the feasibility of building one at a shipyard in Philadelphia. Is it actually unrealistic to build one in the United States?
So there's not only is there a problem building the Korean ships, there's also a problem building American ships. There's a backlog currently on American vessels. So it seems pretty unlikely for that to happen anytime soon. So the main issue is of course, for the U.S., President Trump wants to make a big show of manufacturing coming back to America. For the Korean part, they want to show progress in terms of developing their military capabilities and having a nuclear submarine that can go long distances and without being need for refueling. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy there. The main issue, is of course, where are you actually going to assemble the ship? So Korea is under the impression that it's possible to perhaps assemble the hull, assemble the main structure of the ship in Korea, and then have the U.S. supply the nuclear reactor. So that is, of course, not good optics for the United States. It has to have something built in the United States. And there's at least a year backlog, as I said earlier, of United States ships. So that also seems unlikely. So I think probably we really won't know, I think, until the next security consultative meeting, which should come next year, possibly in March, around there. And maybe we'll get a better idea of where it's actually feasible to build a ship. My guess, this is just a guess, is that probably it'll be partly constructed in Korea and then assembled in the United States. That would give the United States the ability to say, hey, look, we built something here, our manufacturing is still alive. We're still able to make things. So that would be my guess.
See, and as for North Korea, they're preparing for another military parade, possibly to mark the 9th Party Congress in January next year. What's your take on this?
Yeah, so it's pretty typical in North Korea. I mean, they have parades during the Congress. They just had a parade a month ago. It's a opportunity for them to display their military capabilities if there's any new weaponry that they've developed, and to just boost support for their country. And so I think it's pretty typical. I wouldn't think it's out of the ordinary. I wouldn't read it as a response to the Korea's attempt to develop a nuclear submarine. So it's just standard practice for North Korea. That's my read on that.
All right, and South Korea maintained its support for a United Nations resolution condemning North Korea's human rights violations yesterday. And this continues South Korea's stance from the previous conservative Yoon Suk-yeol administration. What's your assessment of this move?
Yeah, so it did continue in one sense, but in another sense, President Lee has broken with the previous administration. Recall that he shut off the propaganda loudspeakers, right, that were blasting propaganda across the border. So that was a show of partly, a show of conciliation. So I think that this is, yes, you're correct. I think it's more of a continuation of focusing of sort of a pragmatic approach to North Korea. On the one hand, developing, continuing to advance South Korea's military capabilities. On the other hand, making small diplomatic gestures of conciliation in order to make room for the possibility of talks, right, of diplomatic talks in the future, which some people suspect will happen next year. That's unclear. But certainly it does show some continuity, and it's a significant a sign of continuity in Korea's foreign policy towards North Korea, in the sense that we're going to take a hard stance on human rights and make sure that make it clear that this is the reason why we are uncomfortable with your regime, because of the way you treat people, and rather than just as the old style Cold War attitude, right, of confrontation. So I think this is a positive sign, and it's a good pragmatic approach that I think will be helpful to South Korea in the long run.
I see. All right, Professor Jenkins, thank you so much for your time and insight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
U.S. FBI Director Kash Patel has said Beijing will now designate all 13 fentanyl precursor chemicals and place 7 chemical subsidiaries under new restrictions. Now, this announcement was made at a White House briefing on Wednesday, where Patel said the move effectively shuts down what he called the pipeline that fuels fentanyl production and is used by Mexican trafficking groups. Fentanyl has been linked to thousands of American overdose deaths each year. The United States has also listed China as a major source of illicit drug ingredients. And on the science front, the 4th launch of South Korea's homegrown space rocket Nuri is set for November 27th. Final safety checks are underway, as this will be the rocket's first nighttime liftoff. Our Cho Hyun reports.
The next-generation medium-sized satellite number 3 is the main payload of South Korea's domestically developed Nuri space launch vehicle. The satellite will carry out missions related to measurements of the Earth's aurora and magnetic field. The satellite is said to be put into a sun-synchronous orbit about 600 kilometers above the Earth for the aurora observations. Due to the launch site and Earth's rotation, the optimal sun-synchronous orbit launch time is around 1 a.m. The authorities have designated a launch window between 12:54 a.m. and 1:14 a.m. on November 27th from the Naro Space Center in Goheung, Jeollanam-do Province. The exact time will be determined the day before the launch. The space rocket's payload weight has been increased from 180 kilometers to over 500 kilometers, as other smaller satellites for diverse missions will also be carried. The handling of the hydrazine fuel processing, usually for medium-sized satellites or larger, will be independently handled by domestic teams without foreign assistance. The rocket will also carry 12 smaller microsatellites, all produced by domestic researchers and private companies. Compared to the 3rd launch, the total weight has almost doubled, and the targeted altitude for release is 600 kilometers. The head of the Space Launch Vehicle Research Directorate at the Korea Aerospace Research Institute, Han Young-min, shared an update on the ongoing final preparations during an online event Tuesday hosted by the Korea Science Journalists Association. The attention is high on whether the 4th launch of space rocket Nuri will succeed. 차윤경, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Cho Hyun, and this is the world now. starting in the United States, where Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have released emails from Jeffrey Epstein's estate that reference former President Donald Trump. The documents made public on Wednesday include a 2019 email in which Epstein wrote to a journalist that Trump knew about the girls. In another email, Epstein told Ghislaine Maxwell that a victim had spent hours in his house with Trump. The White House later put out a statement saying the redacted name in that email was that of Virginia Giuffre, and that she had repeatedly said Trump was not involved in any wrongdoing. Republicans on the committee said Democrats selectively cherry-picked the leaked material to smear the president. The Republicans then released 23,000 pages of documents from Epstein's estate. Trump has repeatedly denied knowledge of Epstein's criminal activities and has said he ended contact years before Epstein's 2019 death while awaiting trial. In Peru, at least 37 people have been killed after a bus collided with another vehicle and plunged about 200 meters into a ravine early on Wednesday. Officials say the crash happened on a stretch of the Pan-American Highway in southern Peru after the bus hit a pickup truck and went off the road. Local authorities report 36 people died at the scene and one later died in the hospital. At least 25 others, including minors, are being treated for injuries. The bus was carrying about 60 passengers and was traveling toward the city of Arequipa. Police have detained the pickup truck driver, and an investigation is underway to determine the cause of the crash. French lawmakers have voted to suspend President Emmanuel Macron's pension reform, a key concession tied to the country's ongoing budget battles. Parliament approved the suspension on Wednesday with 255 votes in favor and 146 against. This freezes the plan to raise the minimum retirement age and comes as France debates next year's budget. The change still requires a final vote on the broader Social Security bill before it takes effect. The suspension was offered to win support from a pivotal bloc as the government works to pass its budget and manage France's large deficit. Cristiano Ronaldo said in a CNN interview on Tuesday that the 2026 World Cup will definitely be his final appearance at the tournament. The 40-year-old footballer told CNN he expects the 2026 event to be his last major international competition. He said he has spent 25 years in the sport and that he is enjoying the moment, adding that retirement will come, quote, soon. Ronaldo is the all-time leading scorer in men's international football and the only male player to score in 5 World Cups. The 2026 tournament kicks off on June 11th in the United States, Mexico, and Canada.
Today is the big day in Korea. The 2026 college entrance exam Suneung is taking place. Students headed to the test centers didn't have to deal with major cold weather this morning, and highs will also rise rapidly to 17 degrees Celsius here in the capital. And even when they get out of the centers after the test, they won't shiver heading back home. However, ultrafine dust concentration will be high today in many parts of Korea due to the dusty air carried by northwesterly winds. And this afternoon, most regions will see highs in the upper teens under brighter skies. But heads up, traffic will be extremely congested from late this afternoon as the parents of test takers will pick up their kids, with restaurants also set to be busy this evening. So plan accordingly for your day. After fine autumn weather, Sunday's rain will bring wintry air to the country early next week, repeating our recent Monday chill again next week. Seoul wakes up to 1 degree on Monday, but -3 degrees Celsius next Tuesday.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.